ever found a worm tied in a knot? I found my first one yesterday, and it got me thinking, why do they do this? So I've done a little research, and I've narrowed it down to 3 possibilities. That's just how worms sleep. They're hibernating, or to prevent dehydration. Maybe it's actually all 3. Let me explain some of the science. Earthworms live in the soil, often deep underground, but conditions for their survival are not always optimal, and these smart little creatures have evolved to adapt. If you've ever held a worm, you will know that they're pretty wet, slimy in fact. This slime has many functions. Primarily, it is there to help them breathe. Yes, worms breathe just like us, but they don't have lungs, and they can't breathe through their mouth. They also don't even have noses, so that possibility is out of the question too. Instead, earthworms breathe by passing oxygen and carbon dioxide through their skin. And for this process to occur effectively, moisture is essential. If worms get too dry, they basically suffocate. So mucus secretion is there to enable oxygen to enter their bloodstream effectively, reach their heart and circulate all the way down to their tail. Cool, huh? I'll tell you something that's even cooler. Worms have 5 hearts. The hearts are a powerhouse of blood pumping technology, and they sit just behind the brain in the front portion of the worm's anatomy. They're not quite the same as a human heart. These are more technically known as aortic arches, and their function is to squeeze blood vessels to circulate the blood. Now let's get back to the slime though. Their slime also aids with movement, and if we go back to the question at hand, it's actually a key component in their knot tying process too. Worms tie themselves in knots for survival. When they are presented with less than ideal conditions underground, specifically a lack of moisture, they tie themselves in a knot and seal in their internal moisture with a layer of their classic mucus. And in doing so, they remain motionless and are essentially sleeping. And if this sleep continues for a prolonged period of time, well, some might say this is also a form of hibernation. So if you guessed all 3 answers to the question at the top of this video, then you were correct. And if you ever find a worm tied up in a knot, make sure to place it back in some well-watered muddy stuff. And don't worry if it's too wet, earthworms can't drown.